The manila envelope trembled in my sister Rebecca's hands as mourners filed past us, offering condolences I barely heard. My husband's body wasn't even in the ground yet. "I need to tell you something about Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the funeral director's practiced platitudes. My son stood across the room, 15 years old, and looking so much like his father it hurt to look at him. Or at least that's what I'd always believed. "Not now, Becca, for God's sake." She pressed the envelope into my hands anyway. "Dave's will isn't what you think. He knew, Caroline. He's always known." I opened it right there, surrounded by casseroles and sympathy cards in our living room. The DNA test results were dated 6 years ago. My husband had known for 6 years that our son, my son, wasn't his. And according to the letter attached to Dave's revised will, my own sister was the one who could tell me who the father really was. But what she told me next made the ground shift beneath my feet. It wasn't just about who Ethan's father was. It was about who his mother really was, too. I grew up in the shadow of Rebecca's perfection. 2 years older, straight-A student, homecoming queen, the golden child who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Our father, Richard Carlisle, prominent defense attorney in Boston, had mapped out both our lives before we could walk. For Rebecca, law school at Harvard just like him. For me, the perpetual second-place finisher, whatever didn't embarrass the family name. Our mother drank gin and tonics on the porch and looked the other way when Dad's temper flared. "Just try harder, Caroline," she'd say, examining my B+ report cards with thinly veiled disappointment. "Your sister managed." I remember my Sweet 16 party, when Dad invited his colleagues and their sons. Good prospects, he called them. Rebecca helped me get ready, curling my hair and lending me her blue dress that matched my eyes. "You look beautiful," she'd whispered, and for once I believed it, until I overheard Dad in his study. "Caroline's not as bright as Rebecca, but she's pretty enough to make a good match." The words burrowed into my chest like parasites. Then came Dave Sullivan, son of the landscaper who maintained our property. He wasn't part of Dad's plan. We met when I was hiding behind the garden shed, crying after Dad had berated me for dropping a plate during one of his dinner parties. Dave offered me a cigarette and a shoulder to cry on. He had kind eyes and calloused hands, and dreams of opening his own construction company someday. When I got pregnant at 19, Dad called it my ultimate disappointment. Rebecca stood silently beside him as he gave me an ultimatum: terminate the pregnancy or leave. Dave proposed that night. We eloped to Connecticut, where his cousin offered him work, and I never looked back. Or so I thought. Rebecca showed up at our tiny apartment 6 months later with a check for $50,000. Dad's guilt money, she called it. He'll never apologize, but he wants you taken care of. Dave wanted to tear it up. I wanted to use it for our future, for Ethan. In the end, the money sat untouched in a savings account I never told Dave about. Over the years, Rebecca would visit occasionally, bringing expensive gifts for Ethan, maintaining the thin thread connecting me to my former life. She never married, instead becoming the lawyer Dad always wanted, making partner at his firm by 30. When Dad had his first heart attack 5 years ago, it was Rebecca who called, asking me to come home. I refused. "He's dying, Caroline," she'd pleaded. "He's been dead to me for 15 years, I'd replied. Dad's grand gesture came 3 years ago, a trust fund for Ethan's education. Dave refused to accept it. "We don't need his money," he'd insisted. "We've built this life ourselves." But secretly, I added the paperwork to the lockbox where I kept the untouched check. a safety net I was too proud to acknowledge, but too scared to discard. What I never suspected was that beneath Rebecca's perfect facade and dutiful daughter act, she carried a secret that would make Dad's rejection of me look like a minor family squabble. A secret about my husband, my son, and a betrayal so profound it would redefine the meaning of family. 6 months ago, Dave was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him 8 months. He lasted 4. Those final months blurred together. Chemo treatments, late-night hospital visits, explaining to Ethan that his father was dying. Through it all, Rebecca surprised me by becoming my rock. She took leave from the firm, rented an Airbnb nearby, and helped with everything from insurance paperwork to making sure Ethan got to his basketball games. "You don't have to do this," I told her one night as we sat on my porch, sharing a bottle of wine after Dave had finally fallen asleep. "Yes, I do," she said, something unreadable in her expression. At the time, I thought it was just sisterly duty, maybe even guilt for standing by while our father cast me out. 2 weeks before Dave died, he asked to speak with Rebecca alone. I didn't think much of it. She'd become like family again, and I assumed he wanted to thank her for her help or ask her to look after us when he was gone. The conversation lasted over an hour, and when Rebecca emerged from our bedroom, her eyes were red-rimmed, her composure cracked for the first time since we were kids. "What was that about?" I asked. "Just legal stuff," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Will, trusts, insurance, lawyer things." The day before the funeral, Rebecca insisted on helping me select Dave's burial suit. As I pulled his blue tie from the closet, the one he wore on our wedding day, a small key fell from the pocket. It looked like it belonged to a safe deposit box, but we didn't have one. When I showed it to Rebecca, she paled. "Probably nothing," she said too quickly, taking it from my hand. "I'll check if it's something legal-related." The morning of the funeral, I found Rebecca in Dave's home office, hastily shutting a drawer when I walked in. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Just making sure all the important documents are in order for after the service," she said. The service itself was beautiful in its simplicity. Dave would have hated anything flashy. His construction crew formed an honor guard, work rough hands holding their hard hats over their hearts. Ethan stood stoically beside me, looking so grown up in his first suit, trying desperately not to cry. During the reception at our house, I noticed Rebecca checking her watch repeatedly, pulling our family lawyer, Michael Greenberg, into whispered conversations in corners. Something was happening, something beyond normal funeral proceedings. When most of the guests had left, Rebecca approached me in the kitchen where I was mindlessly arranging leftover casseroles. "We need to talk," she said, that manila envelope clutched in her hands like a lifeline. "There's something Dave wanted you to know after he was gone." I felt a chill, despite the warmth of the kitchen. "What are you talking about?" Rebecca glanced around to ensure we were alone. "It's about Ethan," she began, her voice dropping to a whisper. That's when Ethan himself walked in, his tie loosened, eyes red. "What about me?" he asked. Rebecca startled, nearly dropping the envelope. "Nothing, sweetheart. Adult stuff. Can you give us a minute?" "No," I interrupted, sudden anger flaring. "No more secrets, Rebecca. Whatever this is, whatever Dave wanted me to know, just say it." She hesitated, then slowly opened the envelope. 6 years ago, Dave had a DNA test done on Ethan. The kitchen seemed tilt. What? Why would he do that? "Because he found an old letter," Rebecca continued, pulling out a faded blue envelope. "A letter I wrote to you 15 years ago but never sent." Her voice cracked. "A letter confessing that I slept with Dave before you two ran away together." The world stopped. I heard Ethan's sharp intake of breath, saw his face contort in confusion. "That's not possible," I said automatically. "Dave and I were together since I was 19. You barely knew him." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "Remember when I brought that check from Dad? I stayed for 3 days. You were working double shifts at the diner. Dave was home alone, worried sick about providing for you and the baby. We both had too much to drink, and—" "Stop," I whispered, looking at Ethan, whose face had gone completely white. "But that's not even the whole truth," Rebecca continued, pulling out another document from the envelope. "The DNA test showed something else, something neither Dave nor I expected." Ethan stepped forward, his voice shaking. "What? What did it show?" Rebecca met my eyes, her own filled with 15 years of guilt. "It showed that Dave wasn't Ethan's father, but it also showed," she took a deep breath, "that I'm not his mother either." "What the hell are you talking about?" The words tore from my throat. "I gave birth to Ethan. I was there." Rebecca shook her head slowly. "No, Caroline, you weren't." My neighbor Ellen appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Is everything okay? We heard shouting." I barely registered her presence. My focus remained locked on my sister, on the impossible words she'd just spoken. "Everyone out," I managed to say. "Except family." Ellen retreated, but Michael Greenberg stepped in, legal pad in hand. "Perhaps we should continue this privately in the study," he suggested. "No," I snapped. "Right here, right now. What do you mean I wasn't there? I carried Ethan for 9 months. I have the stretch marks to prove it." Rebecca's professional composure had completely crumbled. "You were in a car accident during your 8th month, Caroline. You don't remember because of the head trauma. You were unconscious for days. When you woke up, the baby had already been delivered, and you weren't stable. The doctors thought it would be too traumatic to tell you the truth." "What truth?" Ethan demanded, his voice breaking. Rebecca turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "The accident caused a placental abruption. The baby, your biological son, Caroline, didn't survive." The kitchen spun around me. I gripped the counter to stay upright. "That's not possible. Ethan is my son. I have pictures of him as a newborn. I nursed him." "Dave was desperate," Rebecca continued. "He called me from the hospital, hysterical. I was the only family either of you had left. I came immediately. There was a baby boy born the same day, abandoned by a teenage mother who came to the hospital, gave birth, and disappeared. The adoption agency hadn't placed him yet. So you— What? Stole a baby?" I couldn't process what she was saying. "Dave and we arranged it. Michael helped with the paperwork. The hospital staff thought it was best for your mental health. You were having delusions, talking about the baby as if he were still alive. The doctor said forcing you to confront the truth could trigger a complete breakdown." I looked at Michael, who nodded grimly. "It wasn't entirely legal, but it was done with the best intentions." Ethan stood frozen, his 15-year-old frame suddenly seeming both older and younger simultaneously. "So neither of you is my real parent? I'm just some random kid you picked up?" "No," Rebecca and I said in unison. "You are my son," I insisted, "in every way that matters." "And according to Dave's will," Rebecca added, "you're his son too. He never thought of you as anything else. But you let me believe for 15 years that I gave birth to him. You both lied to me every single day." "We thought we were protecting you," Rebecca whispered. And then too much time had passed, and Dave didn't know how to tell you without destroying everything. So why tell me now? I demanded. Why not take this secret to your grave like Dave did? Rebecca handed me another document from the envelope. Because Ethan's biological mother has been found. She's been looking for her son. Dave found out just before he got sick. That's why he had the DNA test done. There were medical questions. I stared at the paper in my hands, a formal request for contact from a woman named Jennifer Layton. She was 16 when she had him, Rebecca explained, from a religious family that forced her to give him up. She's been searching for years. Something snapped inside me. 15 years of believing I was a mother, the one thing I'd done right in my life, suddenly revealed as another lie, another failure. "Get out," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Caroline!" "Get out!" I screamed, sweeping my arm across the counter, sending casserole dishes crashing to the floor. "All of you, out!" Rebecca reached for Ethan. "Come with me, honey, just until—" "Don't you dare touch my son," I stepped between them. "He's not—" Rebecca began, then stopped herself. "Finish that sentence," I dared her. "I dare you to finish it." Ethan backed away from both of us. "I need to think," he said, his voice eerily adult. He turned and walked out the front door. I faced my sister, surrounded by broken glass and funeral food, my husband not even cold in his grave. "You've taken everything from me, my parents' love, my husband, and now you want my son too? That's not what— If you contest Dave's will, if you try to take Ethan from me, I will burn every bridge you have in this town and in Boston. I will tell everyone what you did, the illegal adoption, the lies, everything." Rebecca stared at me, recognition dawning in her eyes. For the first time in our lives, I held all the power. "Leave now," I said, "and don't come back without a formal invitation." The week after the funeral unfolded in a blur of legal meetings and crushing silence. Ethan stayed with his best friend's family for 3 days, refusing to speak to either me or Rebecca. I spent those days alternating between rage and despair, poring over old photo albums, searching for clues I'd missed, some hint that the baby in those first pictures wasn't the one I'd carried inside me. On the 4th day, Ellen brought Ethan home. "He needs his mother," she said simply, giving my hand a squeeze. "Whatever else is true, you're his mother." Ethan and I sat at opposite ends of the couch that night, the gulf between us seeming insurmountable. "Did you know?" he finally asked, his voice small. "Did you ever suspect?" "Never," I answered honestly. "You were mine from the first moment I saw you. I never questioned it." "I want to meet her," he said, "my biological mother." The words cut like glass, but I nodded. "Okay, but I don't want to go alone," he added, meeting my eyes for the first time in days. I reached across the couch and took his hand. "You don't have to." Rebecca arrived the next morning with more paperwork, Dave's actual will, which left everything to Ethan and me, with no conditions or revelations. "I've contacted Jennifer Layton," she said stiffly. "She's willing to meet whenever Ethan is ready." "Why did you tell me all this now?" I asked as Ethan excused himself to the backyard. "You could have kept the secret. I never would have known." Rebecca sank into a chair, looking suddenly older than her 36 years. "Dave made me promise. He said Ethan deserved to know his medical history, and you deserved the truth." She paused. "And there's something else, something I haven't told you yet." My laugh was bitter. What now? Is Ethan actually an alien? Jennifer Layton isn't just some random teenager who gave up her baby, Rebecca said quietly. She's Robert Sullivan's daughter. The name hit me like a physical blow. Dave's uncle? The one who died when we were first married? Rebecca nodded. The family black sheep. They disowned him after he got involved with drugs. His daughter, Jennifer, was raised by her grandparents after he overdosed. They never told Dave's family about her pregnancy. So Ethan is? Dave's cousin once removed. He is a Sullivan by blood. She pulled out a faded photograph, a teenage girl with Ethan's distinctive gray-green eyes. When Dave saw this picture, he knew. That's why he had the DNA test done. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process this new revelation. Ethan wasn't just some random baby. He was family all along, connected to Dave by blood, if not directly as father and son. The meeting with Jennifer Layton took place 2 weeks later, in the neutral territory of Michael Greenberg's office. She was 31 now, a nurse with 2 other children, married to her high school sweetheart who had found her again after college. She had Ethan's eyes, and his same nervous habit of tapping his fingers against his thigh. "I never wanted to give you up," she told Ethan, tears streaming down her face. "My grandparents gave me no choice. I was 16, unmarried, and they were strict Southern Baptists." "Did you know who my father was?" Ethan asked. Jennifer nodded. "A boy from my chemistry class. He died in a motorcycle accident before I even knew I was pregnant." I watched my son absorb this information, adding it to the complex tapestry of his identity. I saw him studying Jennifer's features, looking for himself in her face. "I don't want to disrupt your life," Jennifer said, glancing nervously at me. I needed to know you were okay, that you were loved." "He is," I said firmly. "He always has been." To my surprise, Jennifer turned to me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving him what I couldn't." Afterward, in the parking lot, Ethan asked if Jennifer could visit sometimes. "Not as my mom," he clarified quickly, "just to get to know her and my half-siblings." I nodded, my heart both breaking and healing simultaneously. Of course, the trust fund my father had established for Ethan took on new meaning now. I finally opened the lockbox and showed Ethan everything: the original check, the trust paperwork, the letters from my father that I'd never answered. "He's your grandfather," I explained. "Whatever happened between us, he's still your family." "Do you want to see him?" Ethan asked, "before it's too late?" I considered the question, weighing 15 years of hurt against the new perspective these revelations had given me. "Maybe," I admitted. "Not for me. For you." Rebecca came by the house a month after the funeral, hesitant and bearing a peace offering, Dave's journals, which she'd found in his office. "He wrote to you," she said, "every day after your accident, about how terrified he was of losing you, about the decision to bring Ethan into your lives. I think you should read them." I accepted the journals, but couldn't bring myself to open them yet. Instead, I asked the question that had been burning inside me. "Were you in love with him? Is that why you helped him with Ethan?" Rebecca's smile was sad. "No, I loved him as a brother, nothing more. That night, the one I mentioned, it never happened. It was just another lie to explain the DNA test if it ever came to light." "Then why help him? Why lie to me for 15 years? "Because you were happy," she said simply. After everything our parents put you through, you were finally happy. Dave called me from that hospital, terrified he was going to lose you too. First the baby, then you, to grief or worse. When the social worker mentioned the abandoned baby born the same day, it seemed like, I don't know, fate? A second chance? I thought about the parallel lives we might have led. Me grieving a lost child, perhaps never recovering. Ethan in foster care or with another family. Dave alone. The ripple effects of one decision made in desperation. The unexpected twist came 6 months after Dave's death, when I finally opened his journals. Among the tear-stained pages describing his fear and guilt, I found a letter addressed to Ethan on his 18th birthday, explaining everything: the accident, the adoption, the Sullivan connection, in Dave's own words. Attached was a deed to a piece of property I'd never known about, 10 acres on a lake in Maine, where Dave had dreamed of building us a vacation home. For my son, the letter concluded, blood doesn't make a family, love does, and I have loved you from the first moment I held you. That summer, Ethan, Jennifer, and I visited the property together. Standing on the shore of the lake, watching Ethan skip stones across the water, I realized that family wasn't what I'd always thought it was. It wasn't defined by blood or birth or legal documents. It was something we created ourselves through choice and love and forgiveness. It's been a year since I buried my husband and discovered the truth about my son. Ethan sees Jennifer and his half-siblings monthly now, not replacing us, but adding to the constellation of people who love him. Rebecca and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship, one careful conversation at a time. And last month, I finally visited my father in the assisted living facility where he now resides. He didn't recognize me at first, but he knew Ethan immediately. "Sullivan eyes," he muttered, and I didn't correct him. Dave's construction company continues under the management of his former partner, with Ethan working summers there, learning the trade his father loved. I've started taking classes at the community college, something I always wanted to do but never found the courage for. The foundation has been poured for a modest cabin on that lakefront property. It won't be the dream house Dave envisioned, but it will be ours. A place where our unconventional family can gather, where Ethan can bring his children someday and tell them about the man who chose to be his father. The manila envelope sits in my desk drawer now, its contents no longer secrets, but simply parts of our story. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't found in grand romantic gestures, but in the quiet decisions we make when faced with impossible choices. Dave chose me. He chose Ethan. And now I choose to honor that love by embracing the complicated, messy truth of our family. If you've stayed with my story this long, perhaps you understand that family is rarely what it seems from the outside. Share your own stories of unexpected family discoveries in the comments. Subscribe for more real-life stories of love, loss, and the choices that define us. Because in the end, it's not the secrets we keep that matter, but the truths we choose to live by.